HR personnel of Reddit, what's the most unnecessary thing you've seen in a resume? I was shortlisting resumes for my boss, and came across one that was absolute fucking gold. The position was for a tape operator at a television station. The guy was an artist, I think, and his resume was a 31-page visual representation of his journey through life. Each page contained a moment in time that had shaped him into who he was as a man, as one of the Earth Mother's children, and as an artist. There were pictures of his art, and it wasn't great. To this day I don't know if he was serious or if he was fucking with us and submitted it to get his application numbers up to meet his mutual obligation requirement for job seeker. Had a guy apply for a supervisor position, listed the companies he worked for, but not the positions he held. And then the other half of the page was filled with personal records for different weightlifting exercises. I interviewed him because I felt like I had to interview someone that was willing to submit a resume like that. He spent most of the interview talking about how much time he spends at the gym. No matter what the question was, he was able to relate it to the gym. He didn't get the job. Silly answer. I had a guy once submit a resume that said worked with Annie for 5+ years with no other explanation of who/what Annie was. Annie, it turned out, was a dog he worked with. Unclear because his resume did not state that he worked with animals. General answer, inspirational quotes or company-specific awards. I am always amazed by how many resumes I see that struggle to fit on a page/2 pages but find space to include a large graphic with a generic inspirational quote about pursuing dreams. Similarly, why include 2 lines about the merits you received at your company if you're not going to explain what they are? I had someone put YouTube links to their high school basketball highlights on their resume. Straight out of college and living in small town riddled with drug users, I seriously considered putting consistently pass random drug screening in my skills section. Manager friend told me that would actually be valuable. Not seen by me personally, but by my boss. We received an application for a position. We could see past the typos as writing isn't exactly a large part of the job, but referring to his previous jobs as being boring and not paying enough to get out of bed for wasn't their brightest move. The real turnoff was signing it #ready to work. The candidate proudly listed that they had, presumably published a book of erotic poetry about a type of farm animal. They were applying for a professional office job that had absolutely nothing to do with poetry, or farm animals, or erotica, or bestiality, in case that needs saying. One candidate wrote the lost art of letter writing as an additional qualification. Another submitted a hand-drawn comic book. It was quite entertaining and well done. Not in HR, but had to hire a couple people in the past. One of the applicants included that he was on his high school's homecoming court on his resume. Obviously, I didn't hire him. Dude wasn't even king. I've gotten Jeopardy contestant and Wheel of Fortune winner before. Also had a guy write a whole paragraph about how strong his immune system is and that he never gets sick. My department at the lab got an application for a senior position. Requires experience, a pertinent degree and references from the last lab, all while you must be at least 18. We got a 16-year-old whose experience read that he did his high school's chemistry lab, and proclaimed that because he had done that class, he was now qualified to work in a drug testing lab. Oh, he also wrote in his cover letter that drug tests would never be done on him because he was immune to the effects of drugs and therefore could take them. Our HR person keeps that CV and cover letter framed. It's the craziest one we've had yet. This is in the US, and I understand some other countries and likely industries do it differently, but one of my professors said she just tosses out resumes that have pictures on it because the people have nothing relevant to the job and people are trying to get jobs based on their looks. I have read all the resumes that I got with pictures and that professor has been right so far. I don't trust that rule as to do it every time yet, but it's been right so far. 2 things: we had someone apply for a technical position who had a degree in spirit, nature, and value. We had a guy apply for a quality assurance position who included a link to his LinkedIn profile. I opened the profile and he had given himself the title of quality assurance. That the person had run for a public office in a foreign country and listed that they were members of 2 separate political parties while running for said office. We took a flyer on her. Too soon? Once got a resume where they put down stump removal with a chainsaw as a special skill. They were applying to be a cashier at a grocery store. At an old position, hiring for university IT help desk, we got a resume that listed 18 pages of links from the internal university info pages. Like, links of Wi-Fi info 18 pages. Just URLs. I don't even remember what was on the first couple pages. I just remember being baffled that this person thought URLs qualified as experience. I don't think they actually look at resumes. In the past for hobbies I put part-time ninja, for other skills pet psychiatrist. During one interview they were asking me about my skills, writing them on my resume beside the section that listed my skills. My old fire chief used to throw every other application in the trash because he didn't want to hire unlucky people. My GF got a recent resume that listed proficient in Zoom as a skill. I got a kick out of that. Not as bad as some of the ones here, but I once had a guy hand me a resume with smiley faces on it. Like the generic Microsoft version of smiley face, they were typed right in next to his previous experience. Like cashier at Walmart, smiley face. It has been many years since I worked in HR, but I do remember a resume that was 30 pages long, for a stay-at-home mother applying for her first job. It was very odd and mostly incoherent. Not in HR, but I've been starting to compile my resume after 20 years at the same job and thought about just attaching 20 years of employee yearly reviews I had, and then the last page would be a picture of a microphone on the ground. Definitely a horrible idea, but I think someone would get a kick out of it. I really don't want to work anymore, so I might just do it. The application for a competitive internship. Under experience, he just wrote hoping to get that from you. Highlights from my favorite resume ever. We were hiring a receptionist to answer the phone for a party rental company. Networked and partied with celebrities, get handle my alcohol well, ability to stand. Not HR, but was on a team where they let all of us look at the resumes for people who were going to be interviewed, as one of us sat in on them all. One person literally quoted themselves, like they said something that sounded somewhat profound, and literally quoted themselves. Not HR, but I look at resumes, the cover letter that tries to be cute. Stop with that shit. On another note, I hope to God I never have to look for work again. Not HR, but had a client that, in the required education section of an application, listed her own self-published program as where she was educated. This was in order to qualify to be recognized as the academic officer for her own institution, where she is the only instructor. Self-taught doesn't satisfy the requirement, ma'am. I was helping my boss go through applications and saw on one attended summer camp 5 summers in a row. It confused the hell out of me since we were a coffee shop and she didn't tie in any skills from summer camp. Did she make coffee at summer camp? Did she work on customer skills? What did summer camp have to do with the job she was applying for? I used to put my IQ on my CV when I first entered the world of work because a teacher once told me it would make me stand out. So cringe. Looking back, I think he might have been pulling my leg, but he was kinda right. Their social security number. For their sake, no. Just no. ETA, am not an HR professional. I was the hiring manager for the position. My friend had one where he was hiring for an IT job, and once he was with this historian, and he had a resume that was with all his accomplishments. This is normal, but in the end, he stole 12 consecutive ham sandwiches from a co-worker. I actually had someone pull an Elwoods and spray perfume on their resume. It did not get them an interview or into law school. Lol. Well-known town, well-known journalist for the Anchor newspaper, still there after 20+ years, listed his junior year abroad in Europe on his resume. Guy is past 50, I wonder if he forgot it's there. I'm not HR, but I was the hiring manager for the position. The applicant's resume had a full-page watermark of Gandalf on Shadowfax, White Horse, from Lord of the Rings. Apparently, he applied for every technical position we had, as a lot of other hiring managers had seen the same resume. The one that stands out for me is the one that made it stand out. It was sensory overload. All these bright colored text boxes, different fonts. It was so frickin' hard to read. Keep it simple and professional, and I don't care if your star sign says you are right for the job. Awards, Best Girl Scout, not written on the resume, but I sometimes get resumes via email with unedited, or maybe intentional, file names like Plashirm, Doc or Final resume, Doc lol. While sorting through resumes when opening a new restaurant, we got one that stated that the applicant was bilingual and could speak English and Ebonics. Any resume with a headshot/photo. I don't work for a modeling agency. I don't care what you look like. I'm not HR, but when I was an assistant manager for a dog daycare center, I typically went through the submitted resumes. We had one guy submit a resume which included colorful pictures of himself in different situations like a headshot. I then read through his qualifications, and the one that stood out to me was can touch the rim on a basketball hoop. I'm not sure if this guy was submitting a joke resume or thought being quirky would get him a job at a dog daycare center. We did not call him back as we took our hiring process seriously to make sure we hired the best candidates for the safety and well-being of our dogs. My sister was hiring a waiter for her restaurant and had a resume that listed received certification to handle hand grenades listed under special skills. The guy also had no military experience, just grenades I guess. A friend once came across a pretty bizarre resume. The only thing I remember is the guy aspired to be manager of Broadway. We're not in the US, and the job had absolutely nothing to do with Broadway or performance of any kind. A junior Forsenic entomologist delineated his disconcerting but triumphant victories at his country's annual bug-eating contest before he was usurped by a flamboyant Irishman. He rhapsodized for an entire page about which insects were palatable, the consistency of their grotesque bodies, the astringent tastes, and his contemptuous disregard for Irish people. Really, his vituperation was evocative of an English soldier during the Cromwellian conquest of Ireland. His hate of the Irish was so palpable that his effusions over insect consumption was the least of his worries. I received a CV where the applicant's greatest accomplishment was I painted a house once he was applying for a retail position. I know someone who listed juggling as a skill and was adamant it stayed in there. Not seen by me, but some relatives work in this place where they received a resume with a full-body bikini picture included. It was for an office job. Super late, but when I was in school an HR person came in to talk to the class about resumes and she brought actual resumes people submitted with just a sticky note over the person's name/contact info. I don't know what all the mistakes she was pointing out, but the one I remember clearly was a guy who had down what car he drove on his resume. It wasn't even anything amazing, a Cadillac or something like that. Not HR, but I regularly make hiring decisions. My favorite resume was from the guy who was applying for a back office position and felt the need to put that he helped win a high school football game and that he beat Call of Duty twice. This guy had graduated from uni with a double major,